Welcome to Girlfriends Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study Scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend, and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bible Study Live with Connie and friends. I'm excited that my sister Latrice is with me tonight. And I know Gina is planning to join as it's spring. They just run a little bit behind. So we're going to get started. It's February. Yesterday was February 1st, which is crazy. Already done with January, and here we are in February. And what we're doing this year with Bible Study Live is doing themes for each month. And sometimes we even have guest speakers. So starting next month, we have our very own Latrice, who's going to be our guest Bible study leader, which will be fun. So in March, you will see her beautiful face, and she will take us through the scriptures that are near and dear to her heart based on the theme. So, but now we're talking about love. We're talking about love in the Bible, and specifically love stories in the Bible. And of course, we think love stories in the Bible, so we think about husbands and wives. That's where we go first. But there are also love stories, mother and children, father and children, friendships, sisters. You know, there are all kinds of love stories in the Bible. Tonight, I just want to give a little bit of an overview. I will share a couple of scriptures about some of the couples that hit home for me, and the categories of couples, which is interesting when you think about it. Shoot, it's one of my sisters now. Gina's online. Hi, Gina. So, we're talking about love stories in the Bible tonight. And I was thinking about as I started looking through all the love stories, because I know which ones have messages for me. I won't necessarily say appeal to me, but there are love stories that have messages for me that I've needed and have called on, right and wrong, good ones and bad ones, to be honest with you. One of the things that I wanted to share is that we often, depending on which side of the track you're on, I'll just put it that way, as it relates to husbands and wives, we always think it's supposed to be this crazy love, like it's supposed to be this wonderful love story. They meet, they fall in love, and that's wonderful. But there are also, there's our Bria too. There are also love stories in the Bible where was an arranged marriage. And so both are biblical. Both, falling head over heels, crazy in love, that's biblical. And having an arranged marriage, having somebody, some king or whomever say, here's who you're gonna marry. They're both biblical. So neither is wrong, neither is right. But just in thinking about all kinds of love stories in the Bible, there are a bunch of examples. So I'm gonna give a couple examples and just overview, and then I'm going to look at a couple of scriptures tonight. And I'll also share very transparently some of the couples that have resonated with me for different reasons. So of course, we've got couples where he's loving the wrong woman. He's loving the wrong woman. And sometimes it's two wrongs making a wrong. It's not just loving the wrong woman, but both of them wrong. Ain't neither one of them right. Like Jezebel and Ahab, they were both just wrong. She was way wrong. He was just as wrong. Weak and wrong, but wrong. Samson and Delilah just loved the wrong woman. He loved the wrong woman. Potiphar and his wife trying to, do all the things with Joseph, loving the wrong woman. Lot and his wife. She was a little bit weak, loved the wrong woman. She turned into salt. It got messy. It got way messy because if you read the scriptures, you find out later that Lot's daughters decided to continue the family line with him while he was asleep, had been drinking. Messy. Marry the wrong woman, you end up sleeping with your daughters. That's all I'm saying. I know it's not directly related. I know it was a leap. Really, that's what happened. His wife was gone. He gets drunk, and then they're messy boots. Messy. Of course, there are also marriages where they love the wrong man, like Abigail and Nabal. And she went up to David and said, you know what? He is a fool. His name means fool. He is a fool. Please don't kill our whole town because of my fool husband. So there are also those situations. You love the wrong man or you've married the wrong man, you know it. There are arranged marriages. David, some of his wives, and he had multiple, were arranged marriages where the king gave him a wife. Esther, of course, that was an arranged marriage, really. It was, a presentation of her to the king. And I'm assuming the same thing happened with Queen Vashti. Who knows what happened with that, but I'm assuming it was something similar. I was also thinking about, the ride or die type of love, ride or die. Now, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but ride or die kind of love. You look at Ananias or Sapphira, we're ride and die. Ananias is like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go up to these apostles and tell them this is how much we got for selling the house. And she's like, okay, ride or die. He goes in, tells the lie, dies on the spot, carry him out. Here she comes telling the same lie. She was sticking with her boo no matter what. She died too. They were ride or die. There's a love story in the Bible. They stuck with each other. They didn't waver. They kept to their lie. But it is a ride or die love story. It's interesting when you think about that. And then, of course, there were marriages for provision or protection, financial support, covering. David and Abigail. He married her after her husband died. He didn't kill her husband. Nabal just died after being ugly. He died. And David took Abigail under his wing, under his marriage or whatever. And then Ruth and Boaz, even though they did love each other, and I am going to read about Ruth and Boaz. That's one of the ones that I'm going to read about. But it's interesting. It was, because of Naomi and kinsman redeemer and what happens when your husband dies and you don't have an heir to carry on the property and all of that. So it's really an exchange at first, but you can tell he was such an upstanding man, which is one of the reasons that I really like that scripture. Like he had an opportunity to do some ugliness and didn't. Then there's forbidden love. There are the David and Bathshebas of the Bible. I will be honest, that's one of the ones. Ruth and Boaz, David and Bathsheba, those have been, some of the ones I've identified with. I understand about forbidden love, and it can turn out messy. There was death related to forbidden love. And there are uglier moments of forbidden love, like with Amnon and Tamar. They were both David's children. And Amnon, it said he was in love with her, right? You look at 2 Samuel 13, it says he was head over heels in love with her. He had to have her. He loved her. But really, it wasn't love. It was carnal desire. It was carnal desire. And I thought about that when I was thinking about forbidden love versus carnal desire. That situation in forbidden love started, obviously, there was some attraction, something happened, things that shouldn't have gone on, went on. No question. David took Bathsheba as his wife. Amnon and Tamar, once he raped her, it said he despised her, and he even despised her more than he loved her. Carnal desire turned ugly. And what's interesting when you read 2 Samuel 13, and I'll read a little bit of it, but when you read that, you see that he said, Father wouldn't keep me from marrying you. Like, don't just throw me out in the street. He was like, I hate you now that I've done this thing. It makes you think he hated himself, whatever. Anyway, it was ugly. And Absalom, it must have been her brother from I think they both shared a father, but Absalom and Tamar were brother and sister, I think fully, mother and father. They were fully brother and sister. Absalom bumped Amnon off. He was like, you're not just going to come in here and rape my sister and then throw her out in the street. And it was horrible. It was horrible. So just in thinking about, types of relationships, love relationships, carnal attractions and things like that, it's interesting. There are a bunch of other marriages in the Bible, and what's interesting about them that they had their ups and their downs. It wasn't just except for one. It's one that we don't hear about any downs. And I mean, Ruth and Boaz, we don't hear about that either, although they had a struggle to get where they were. But there's a relationship I'm going to reference in a moment that was just, you only heard about them being together and operating as a team. But when you think about Hosea and Gomer, the prostitutes, and Zechariah and Elizabeth, they were, I would say, a good couple. They didn't have a lot of ups and downs, although he didn't believe his old wife was going to get pregnant, so he was struck mute for a while. In terms of their relationship, it seemed like they were pretty good. They were pretty good. They don't talk about fidelity and no adult, none of that. Isaac and Rebecca, we know there were some challenges. Ruth and Boaz is a good one. Abraham and Sarah, messy. Hagar came into it was messy. Jacob and Rachel and Leah, messy. Moses and his wife, her name just went out of my head, but one of you put it in the chat. It's the one where his siblings talked about her because she was a Cushite woman or whatever. They tried to throw, mudslinging. They seemed to be cool. Of course, Joseph and Mary started with some drama. They worked through it. You didn't hear about a lot of drama. They didn't have the, keeping up with the Joseph and Marys. They didn't have any of that. So they were pretty good. Esther and the king were positive, but he had a bunch of women. So yes, Moses and Zipporah. Yes. She's the Cushite, right? Bria, thank you. And Noah and his wife, and that was one of the things that I really liked, is that Noah had one wife. You read a lot of, different religion for sure, yeah. You read a lot about how so many of the kings, or really the men with wealth and all of that, had more than one wife. Noah, he was saved when nobody else was, right? He and his family, and he had one wife. I really loved reading about that. Versus Solomon. Now, we already knew David had a bunch of wives, but Solomon, his son, says 700 wives, 300 concubines. And you understand later when he starts writing Proverbs and talking about, don't get caught up, guys. Don't, you can understand Ecclesiastes. I think he writes Ecclesiastes too, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just like, it's all meaningless. It's just, don't do it. Just don't do it. So, anyway, I wanted the couple that I hadn't mentioned yet, that mentioned several times, and they don't tell a lot of their story, but what I love about them is that they're always mentioned together. That is Priscilla and Aquila, or Aquila and Priscilla, and they alternate how they speak of them. So sometimes they say the wife's name first, sometimes they say the husband's name first. It's really just a blessing. It's really just a blessing. And I really like that. I like that. What speaks about their relationship to me is that they did it together. And so I just want to read a couple of scriptures. Literally, it's like one or two at a time. So if you look at Acts 18, you can see where they first mention them. In Acts 18, verse 1, after this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy, his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. That's all you hear about it first. That's it. You meet Aquila and Priscilla. That's it. Then you look down a little bit, and in verse 18 of chapter 18, it says, Paul stayed on in Corinth for some time. He left the brothers and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. I'm going to switch the names. Before he sailed, he had his hair cut off at Cenchrea because of a vow he had taken. See those kind of sentences? his hair cut off because of a vow he had taken. I could do a whole movie on that one line. I love those kind of lines when they just drop that in. Had his hair cut off at this place because of a vow. I love that kind of stuff. And it says, they arrived at Ephesus where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila. Priscilla and Aquila again. And then later, you read, which is pretty cool. Go to verse, it's still in 18. Go to verse 26. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home, explained to him the way of God more adequately. Talking about a Jew named Apollos. And he was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the scriptures. He'd been instructed in the way of the Lord. He spoke with great fervor, taught about Jesus accurately. Though he knew only the baptism of John. That's what had happened before. So when he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, Priscilla and Aquila heard him and invited him home. Like, let us give you a little bit more knowledge. You're doing good. We love the fire. Talk about Jesus. We love John the Baptist. That's our dude. But gotta also talk about Jesus. So I love that. Let us just explain the way of God more accurately. I love that. And then reference them again. So that was Acts 18. Look at Romans in chapter 16, verse 3. It says, greet Priscilla and Aquila, my fellow workers in Christ Jesus. They risked their lives for me. Not only I, but all the churches of the Gentiles are grateful to them. I just love that. I love that. Mentions them over and over again. And then there's another one final look at 1 Corinthians 16, toward the end, 16:19. It says, the churches in the province of Asia send you greetings. Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets at their house. Love them. They're hosting, they know the word, they're bringing people in, working together, interchangeable. I love their unity. I love the way that every time they're referenced, they're always referenced together. And when sometimes people will ask me, are you ever going to get married again? I'm like, I'm completely down for it, but I'm all about fulfilling my purpose. I'd rather fulfill my purpose than get married again. I love to get married again. I really want to. But if it's between fulfilling my purpose and getting married again, I'm an err on the side of fulfilling my purpose. It's me. That's what I'm going to do. Now, here's the guy who's like, hey, Priscilla, I got you. I'm Aquila. I am there for it. We can do the thing. Not Ananias and Sapphira ride or die. We're going to ride and die toward purpose. So I am there for it. If that is, if that's what God desires. But if it's between that, and having, that love fulfilled in my heart, which I do want, if I knew I had that, but I knew God wanted me to fulfill a purpose and I wasn't doing it because I was fulfilling instead, I was fulfilling desires of my heart instead of allowing God to fulfill the desires of my heart, I have a problem. I do want to be married, not to the expense of fulfilling my purpose. This is me. Now, the last thing I was going to read, I did say I was going to read Ruth and Boaz, because it's just, there's another little line in there that I just love. Look at Ruth chapter 4. So chapter 3 explains how she slept on the foot of his bed. He felt her down there and he was like, what's going on? And she was like, I'm so-and-so. And he didn't try to take advantage of her. He was just like, you know what? This is how good his heart was. He said, there's another kinsman redeemer that's closer to you than I am. Let me first go to him. He says he's going to pass. I'll be your boo. First, he has to, he's got to pass. So read chapter 3 and you'll understand all of that. But I'm going to pick up in chapter 4 because there's a line that I just love. I love the Bible is so interesting, y'all. So interesting. Look at chapter 4, verse 1. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he mentioned came along, Boaz said, over here, my friend, sit down. So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town. I love that. He's like, let me get my boys. We're going to do this in front of everybody. Ain't no secrets. I'm not trying to bribe you. Let's do things decently and in order. We got 10 of the elders of the town and said, sit here. And they did so. He said to the kinsman redeemer, Naomi was come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. Thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here, in the presence of the elders of my people. You will redeem it, so. If you will not, tell me, so I will know. No one has the right to do it except you. I am next in line. He's so decent. I'm not trying to slide in, get my, let's do it right. You first. If you decide you're going to do it, no problem. Back up. But if not, I'm next in line. Dude says, I will redeem it. Okay. I will redeem it. He said, Boaz must have been like, dang. But he said, that's okay. Boaz said, the day you buy the land from Naomi, from Ruth the Moabitess, you acquire the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. So he's like, just all cards on the table. So you do that, you get this next. This, the kinsman redeemer said, oh, then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. I have no idea what that means. I'm going to have to do some research to understand why that would endanger his. But he said, no, you redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. Now, in earlier times in Israel, the redemption and transfer of property to become final, here's my line. One party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. I was starting doing that. Let's make this official. I'm gonna get my shoe, my sandal. Give you one of my slippers. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. So the kinsman redeemer said to Boaz, pay it yourself. He removed the sandal. I love the sandal. How you deal with whatever you got. That's it. So anyway, I'm just going to stop there. That's verse 8. Anyway, I love the exchange of sandals. And I just wanted to give an overview. We're going to be talking about some marriages, husband and wife stuff. We're going to be talking about a mother's love. That's one of the types of love stories in the Bible. We'll be talking about some friendship love, some sibling love, the good kind most of the time. We'll talk a little bit about each of these during February. But first, I just wanted to give the overview. And I want to bring my sisters on screen to talk about love stories in the Bible and what you knew, what you didn't know. So I'm going to remove the pen. Now we're on gallery view. I see my sister Gina, my sister Latrice, and Bria and Spring are off camera right now, but you're welcome to unmute and share a comment. What did you know? What didn't you know? And when did you know it? Have you ever given your sandal to somebody? That's what I want to know. Can't hear you, sister. We can't hear you. So Latrice, you have to go first while Gina figures out our audio.
That was fabulous. I've known about all of those stories. Some I didn't think of them as love stories. I do now. So it's just interesting.
Oh no, she froze. She just frozen for me? Maybe I'm frozen.
She's frozen.
Oh no, she's frozen. Okay. Well, while she unfreezes, Gina, what would you like to say?
I think I've definitely given somebody my sandal. I don't know if I realized I was giving to him when I gave it. But I have signed some deals, sealed some deals. Yeah. I have an unusual love story myself. So these stories speak to me. So.
You do have an unusual love story. And unfortunately, I've had more than one unusual love story. So fit in a number of these categories here.
Yes.
So you've given away your sandal. Spring and Bria, what about you? I know Tracy will come right back.
I don't think I have. Have I? Have I?
I don't know.
I don't think. Well, I'm asking because you might know, but I
No.
don't think.
Of the love stories in the Bible, is there one in particular that you identify with, Spring?
I like the Boaz one. I've always liked because I've always looked at it as a respectful. Because
Yes.
with all them wives and all those concubines and all that stuff being just the way it was, I've always seen that one as a show of respect, and also just how hard she worked.
Yeah.
And she wasn't working to get him.
No.
She was working to honor her mother-in-law.
Yes.
And I just love everything about that story, because it wasn't about, it was just about her doing the honorable thing. And God allowed her to be seen as a result of that. And
Yes.
so, yeah, absolutely one of my most favorite stories in the Bible.
Yes. Absolutely.
The Esther story has always been interesting to me because the king seems unreasonable in how he's treated his wives before Esther. And yet, I don't know if he was just really in love with Esther and he hadn't been in love with the others or what, but he seemed to be very reasonable in his dealings with her. So you said Vashti was the wife before her. There was another one that he bumped off. Yeah, see, I
I don't know that he bumped her off. He kicked her out. Because
I thought he killed. I thought he
I
killed
don't think he
him. Okay.
killed Vashti. I think he expelled her from the kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told her she had to go.
Mhm.
Because she had, in his eyes, disrespected her. But when you really climb into that word, you'll see that. And a lot of people just take it with, she disrespected him. And so, don't disrespect and watch your mouth and all that stuff. But when you look into it, he was absolutely disrespecting her. And she was like, I'm your wife.
Exactly.
And she just held her ground, because he was basically telling her, because he had got drunk, everybody got drunk, and he basically told her to go out and do striptease for his boys. That's basically what it was. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. And so it took some, I think I didn't really learn that really until like in a Bible study where we were able to go back and stuff, because it had always been taught from the pulpit in this other way.
Right.
That's why my old pastor used to say, Pastor Smedley always said, you need to know the word for yourself. He said, I might not know what I'm talking about.
So the way that she disrespected him, was refusing to do a striptease for his.
Yeah,
They were in high spirits. It says.
Yeah, they were drunk. Him and all his boys had got drunk. They had been drinking for like 2 days or something. And then he was like, come in here and do a striptease and do blah. And she was like, no, I tell you what's not gonna happen. And so he was like, okay, you're getting kicked out. So then, once I really learned kind of the truth about that, I was like, well, shoot, maybe Esther not so well off, but see, Esther sacrificed though. Her whole thing, her big purpose was to save her people. And so she was able to do that. But yeah.
I wonder if he was carrying around some remorse over how he treated the last wife, and that affected how he treated Esther. I wonder.
Maybe. Because
he didn't seem like a complete fool. He must have, having gotten drunk, he might have thought later, well.
You're right. He did seem
like
reasonable in making that choice. Because everything about it too was Vashti was like a bad mamma jamma.
Yeah.
She was like strikingly beautiful, extremely intelligent, and really well respected. And for him to just throw her out.
Spring, am I remembering correctly? And I'll check it in the scripture. His boys were encouraging. Basically, I know you're not going to just let her disrespect him like that.
They was what do we call that? They were signifying. Right? See, y'all should let people from Easter come on and talk.
Yep, egging him on. See, I bet he had come to some realizations between Vashti and Esther. I bet he had come to some.
It does make you wonder. Yeah, I love the story of Esther as well. It was purpose. It was about purpose.
Right.
About anything else but purpose. Bria, did you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Sure. Hopefully my connection isn't too bad. That's why I have my video turned off. But, I like that you mentioned other kinds of love that aren't just romantic. And I think of Ruth and Naomi and
Yes.
just what a faithful love that was. That she said, no, I'm not going to leave you like everyone else has, and how meaningful that was, but how that actually changed the trajectory of her family and her future family. Because, with that, she said, your God is my God, and she stayed with her. And, a lot of times I think about my friendships and family relationships, all these different things as well, and like how to love people in that and what examples we have. And they're one of my favorites. So I like that you mentioned that as well.
Yeah, I do. I love Ruth and Naomi, and I love David and what was Saul's son's name?
You talking about Jonathan?
Yes, David and Jonathan. Same thing. They were like, nope, I got your back. Jonathan protected David from his father. He protected him from Saul. He was like, this is all wrong. At first he was like, I wouldn't do that. I think no, David, I don't think that's what's going on. He said, you know what? I'll find out though. If it is, I'm going to warn you. And then he did. And I love that also, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, mother-in-law, like you said, Ruth and Naomi, that relationship. There's some really beautiful love stories, relationships of love that aren't just romantic love, like you said, Bria, the Bible. And I love that. And we're exploring them all in February, the month of love. Latrice, I know you got cut off. You were mentioning that some of these you didn't realize were, you didn't think of them as love stories, but now that you do, was there one in particular that stood out to you that you now think of as a love story you didn't before? Forget to unmute.
I actually can't name one. I think I got a little discombobulated when my internet just went kibosh. So,
Yeah.
but I was listening to, is it Bria?
Yeah.
Talk about Naomi and Ruth, and that is my relationship with my mother-in-law. And when I introduced her at a national conference last year, that is one of the things one of the scriptures that I led with. And I don't just say it about her. She says it on a national stage about me as well. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship that I have with her.
That's so sweet.
And that's such a blessing.
It is. It is.
It is.
That's a blessing. I didn't have that.
I kind of have it. I had it a little bit with my mother-in-law, but I try to be that mother-in-law to my daughter-in-laws.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I'm sure both Jasmine and Ellie would say the same. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And I've been divorced almost 20 years, like 19 years. And my mother-in-law still calls me like every week to check in out from Los Angeles. She just calls just to check in. I'm doing her Saturday calls. And then when I don't hear from her, I'm like, CA, call, let's make sure she's okay.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
And so, yeah, so I've been friends with my in-laws much longer than I was married to my ex-husband.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made it clear that if anything happens with my sons and their wives, that they're still family. I don't know what y'all are gonna do. These women are my daughters now. These women are my daughters. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you, ladies, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to end the live recording on Facebook now.